right, let's talk about the Bingham County coroner race. Now, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen or heard or somewhat been a part of. So the reason I'm talking about this is I work with coroners all over the country. The last couple weeks, I got calls from Florida, North Carolina, Minnesota, and North Dakota. And they're asking me for help with the scuba side of things. I spend a lot of time as a diver doing search and recovery of things and people. So that's how I met Jimmy. In fact, we were out on one of the saddest and most public recoveries of a young man a couple of years ago. I met him on New Year's Day. People had been out for an entire month looking for this young man. I spent a few hours one day and then pulled him out of the water the next day. I've got other videos about that particular case and how that worked. But the one thing that impressed me was we've got coroners in this state. We've got coroners that are very close to us that actually never go out on a call. They leave it to the cops. They leave it to the funeral homes. And they don't really do what's necessary as part of the job. That particular day on the recovery, every single person that was out there risked their life. The water was rising very, very quickly. The ice sheet was just coming in so fast. I've never seen an ice sheet move that fast. And by move, I mean, it wasn't broken up into sections and the current taking it toward us. The ice sheet was growing because the wind was blowing so hard and it was so cold. Every single person has my respect and my gratitude for being part of that, including Jimmy. Most coroners would not go out there, especially in those conditions, with as dangerous it was. He showed up himself. He didn't send a deputy. So that's the first time I met Jimmy and why I've taken kind of an interest in this race. The other part I want to bring up, though, is before anybody says, well, you didn't hear that or you don't know that for sure, I want to introduce you to some friends of mine. First, this is the DJI Pocket 3 camera. And the reason it's called the Pocket 3 is it fits in your pocket. And the companions I have that go with it are the DJI Mic 2 and the Rode lavalier mic. If I turn the gain up on this, I can record across the large room. So I got receipts to back this stuff up when I say somebody said something, just so you know. All right. So let's dive into this a little bit. We have the funeral homes that are really, really pushing Scott Tweedy. Why? Well, when Jimmy was elected, came into office, he stopped a lot of what was going on with the funeral homes. So when somebody would die, instead of the coroner transporting the body, that was pretty much left to the funeral homes. Now, I have heard funeral directors say that what they do, they're doing it for free, and complaining that instead of transporting somebody in a nice, fancy, pretty hearse, they're being transported in a pickup truck, and instead of being transported to a nice, fancy, pretty funeral home, they're going to a facility in Idaho Falls that nobody knows where it is. I can also tell you they damn well know where those bodies are going in Idaho Falls. They also know it's a secured facility. Yes, it's got barbed wire. Yes, it's not pretty, but it's a secure place for bodies that have to be transported to autopsy. Not every body goes to the secure facility in Idaho Falls from Bingham County. It just happens to be where those go that are part of an investigation that needs to go a little bit deeper and beyond that. Okay, let's talk about money. Now, the funeral homes and the funeral directors say that they never made any money off of what they do for the county, transporting, storing, and all that stuff. Sure, you're not getting a direct bill, but think of it this way. If a body shop that owned a few wreckers had a contract with the county so that every totaled vehicle that had to be towed was taken to one body shop and stored at one body shop, how do you think that's going to affect their business? Okay, are you going to take your vehicle, pay to have it transported from one body shop to another, when your insurance is paying the bill? Or even if you have to pay for it out of pocket, are you going to pay for it to be moved from one body shop to another when it's already at one? You're going to save money, so you're going to have your services provided there. Same basic principle here. If the funeral homes are transporting to the funeral homes, that's where they go. Now, I can also tell you from a personal level, I have had a coroner do pretty much everything a coroner does with a family member. My father died of a heart attack. He was transported by the coroner to the funeral home. The coroner was the funeral director at that time where my father died. So I saw how that part of the system worked. I also had a brother whose death had to be investigated by the coroner, by the police, had to be transported to autopsy. The Bingham County coroner did all of that. And actually, that particular case is one of the reasons we're here today, is because the coroner would not let the funeral home transport my brother, who was a Marine, to autopsy. Our coroner had enough respect for our military members to make sure that that was done and done right. All right. So, Scott seems like a nice guy. Really does. I hold nothing against him personally, but I also don't believe he has the ability at all to be a coroner, especially with the reasons that he left the coroner's office a few years ago. If you have the option of being terminated or quitting because you never take pictures and never file a report, you shouldn't have the top job. Just saying. So let's take a look here at what the funeral homes are saying. Okay, so this is from Blake Hawker, from Hawker Funeral Home. And I don't know Blake. I only got to meet Perry once. Again, seems like a really nice guy. And I understand where they're coming from. They want to make money on this. They want things their way. Up until Jimmy came in and was the coroner, the funeral homes got to basically dictate how all the stuff was done in the coroner's office. If you elect Scott Tweedy, you're really electing the funeral directors to be the coroner and function as the coroners. That's the way this is going to work. That's what they want. And again, don't try and say, I don't know what you guys think and what you say. You guys have seen me. I record it, everything while I'm there talking to you guys, Perry. So let's look at what Blake put out here. The first argument he's talking about is the coroner's salary and whether or not it's full-time or part-time. I have no idea on that, so I'm not even going to talk about it because I don't care. But that's just one of those things. You can look it up. You can talk to the county commissioners, figure it out. That's not an important part of this from my standpoint anyway. So Blake talks about national standards. What are the national standards for coroners, and why does Jimmy consistently quote that he's trying to bring the coroner's office up to them? Blake says that he couldn't find any national standards. Well, let's take a look. Okay, a quick Google search says there's no uniform national standard for coroners. So that is a correct statement, sort of. The national standards are voluntary. The coroner's offices, there's associations, just like there is any other group, and they have standards that they work to get people to abide by voluntarily. So why is it voluntary? I mean, we look at the American Medical Association. So the AMA has a code of ethics, and the code is recognized as the most comprehensive guide for physicians who strive to practice ethically. Opinions on the code address issues, challenge confronting medical profession, and represent the AMA policy. Okay, so policy. We're talking a lot about policy when it comes to the American Medical Association. So the AMA code is a bit different than coroners. Why? Doctors are not elected officials. Coroners are. So you can't put a lot of restrictions on coroners when it comes to standards that they have to abide by or qualifications they have to have before the job, because it's an elected job. The AMA standards are primarily there to hold a medical license and to bill insurance. Those are the two most important things. All of these guidelines are created by the doctors, by the AMA. This is not a government entity. Most of these associations aren't, in fact. Things like the AMA, most people think, oh, well, that's government run. It's not. It's an association of doctors who've come together, created these standards, and then they have their own internal licensing. So the AMA licensing is through the AMA and not through the federal government or anything along those lines. Some states say you have to be licensed through the AMA in order to practice medicine in those states. Actually, not every state does, believe it or not. But to bill insurance, you have to. So a big difference right there between a coroner and a doctor when it comes to the national standards. Coroners are elected, so all of their standards have to be voluntary. Doctors are not elected, and they also bill insurance so they can make their things more standardized. So for the coroners, the national standards are, they have several things that they list out here, and this is easy to find. Simple Google search can show you what those standards are and what the coroners as a group try to maintain while they're working throughout the country. All right, so let's go back here. So the national standards, so it says there's no standards, but the standard expectations are one autopsy to 1,000 occupants of the area. So that would be 50 autopsies in Bingham County a year. And so Jimmy budgeted for that, which is what a smart, responsible public servant would do. And so that number is based on budget, not that he's actually trying to do 50 autopsies per year. So that's kind of silly. Okay, so then Blake goes on to say, no one understands autopsies more than funeral homes. Well, I'm pretty sure that the medical examiner understands them a lot more, and I'm sure the coroners do as well. Yes, he is correct that if somebody does an open casket or something like that, the funeral homes are responsible for putting the body back together and making it presentable. An autopsy is very, very invasive. It's not something that I ever want to be a part of again. I've had to a couple of times, but I'm not going to get into that. It's pretty gooey and icky. So anyway, yes, the bodies are mutilated as part of the autopsy process, but it's not something that they want to do. So Blake says, our worry is Jimmy continues to extend the overreach of the office of the coroner in as many cases as possible. Now, I couldn't imagine why he would want to do that or what benefit it has to him or the coroner's office in particular to do more autopsies. So it's an average, it's a budget. That's all it is. All right. So what happens when the coroner is on scene and the feedback that the funeral homes are getting when the coroner's office show up? So they say he bulldozes through. He goes into the home, kicks everybody out. He interrogates the families, making them feel guilty for something that didn't happen. So we've heard the same stories from healthcare professionals that they too are treated as accomplices. Jimmy takes countless photos of the deceased's loved ones as well as their entire home inside and out. Let me remind you, his job, the job of the coroner, that isn't his job as a coroner. Any criminal investigation needed would be under the deputies or expertly trained law enforcement. Okay. So he's talking about law enforcement. There is a difference. It's not even a subtle difference. So the cops, the peace officers, they investigate the why and the process of a homicide or a suicide or something along those lines. So they're investigating the criminal act itself. The coroner's job is to investigate the cause of death because the coroner on the death certificate has to write why somebody died. Okay? So if it's a suicide, the coroner has to determine that. If it's a homicide, the coroner has to determine that. That is not up to law enforcement at all. period, not ever, nowhere in this country. The coroner's job is to determine the cause of death. So let's take a look here. Coroner job description. So this is the job description of a coroner. And again, this is a simple Google search, but this puts together what the coroners are supposed to do nationally. So death investigations. Conduct independent medicological death investigations at the scene for homicides, suicides, accidents, and sudden natural deaths without an attending physician. So they determine why. So they have to establish the cause, and in the process of establishing the cause and the manner of the death, they have to collect evidence, which means they have to identify the victims, document and secure the scene, and collect ante-mortem and post-mortem evidence. They also notify the families if somebody dies. In most cases, sometimes it's the cops, sometimes it's the coroner. It all depends on location. And then maintain precise records, issue death certificates, and release reports to law enforcement and public health system. Okay, so it is the coroner's job to investigate the death. Part of that investigation, if you've ever been part of a criminal investigation on any side of it, or even a suspected criminal investigation, you have to secure the scene. You have to make sure that it's not contaminated, that nobody's moved anything, that nothing's been manipulated. So the coroner would be responsible for that. They would have to make sure that everybody leaves, pictures are taken, evidence is gathered, and that way they can write the death certificate properly. Now, a death certificate is one of those things that is always open to change. So even after the cause of death has been determined, there are times when that can be changed on the coroner's report later on down the road. All right. So I've seen a lot of this stuff. It's really pervasive on social media right now, saying that the coroner is not supposed to investigate deaths. They absolutely are. Everywhere coroners investigate the death, and it's the cause of death, not the criminal act. If there is a criminal act involved, if the coroner determines that there is no criminal act, that it's natural, or that it's somebody has completed suicide, that's it. The cops can investigate, but the coroner makes that ultimate decision whether or not the person was murdered, whether or not they completed suicide, or whether or not it was an accident or natural causes. So we do need to have somebody who understands how to do that and how to make that happen. Okay, so we talk about, or Blake talks about here, that we're Bingham County, Idaho. We're not Los Angeles. We don't need to be to the level of a place like that when it comes to our investigations. So the question that I have for everybody out there is, if you have a loved one die, whether or not homicide, completing suicide, natural causes, whatever it is, wouldn't you want to know exactly why it happened? Wouldn't you want somebody to meet those highest level of professional standards? One of the things that I heard funeral directors talking about was the job of the coroner is to console the family. Nowhere in anything I've ever read about coroners or anything that I've ever experienced with a coroner would make me think that that's actually part of their job. Their job is to investigate the cause of death. I can tell you again from personal experience, even though I met Jimmy on a recovery dive, brought a young man back to his family. When my brother died, I was very much treated like somebody who had information or had possible information about what happened. The reason for that, it was a suspicious death. It was the way it happened. I was not offended by that at all because I knew that the coroner had a job to do. I knew that law enforcement had a job to do. You're going to be uncomfortable if somebody dies under suspicious circumstances. It's just the way it is. So If the coroner has to go in and collect evidence, it's what they have to do. No matter how well you do it and how soft-handed you are, people are going to be upset with you and the way you do it. So the coroner's job is an important one. The offices of the medical examiners work closely with the coroners. Law enforcement works closely with the coroners. They have one of the worst jobs there is. Sometimes when a cop shows up, people are happy to see him. Sometimes when firefighters show up, people are happy to see him. People are very rarely ever happy to see a coroner. So if somebody has a negative view of how the coroner has acted when they have shown up, that's not a surprise. It's not a pleasant job. It's not a job that most people can do. It's not a job I'd want to do, and I deal with death all the time. So finally, I want to talk about this last picture here that Blake Hawker put up. So I don't know for sure that this is the facility, but this is where he says the Idaho Falls facility is. Doesn't really matter how it looks from the outside. If a body has to be transported and stored for autopsy, it has to be a secure facility. That means barbed wire. That means a variety of other things. It means security cameras. You have to maintain physical security of those persons' remains until autopsy and then until it's turned over to the funeral home after that. It sucks. It really does. But it's the way it has to be. So Idaho Falls may not have a pretty facility, but they do have a secure facility to maintain those remains until autopsy is completed. So, I'm not going to tell anybody how to vote. I know how I'm going to vote. I know that there's a lot of money out there behind this coroner's race, and the money is coming from the funeral homes. The push for this whole process and for replacing our incumbent coroner is financially motivated. So, yeah, take it as it is, but do your research, see what's going on. Go talk to Scott. Go talk to Jimmy. If you talk to both of them, I don't think there's going to be any question in your mind who you're going to vote for. So that's all I have to say about that today. I hope I was helpful to you guys, and we'll see how this election goes.